You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. This is Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There are these things that makes official. Welcome to 16 years of 2,300 episodes, 24 episodes of the Chris Voss Show. And as always, you're bringing the most brilliant minds, the CEOs, the billionaires, the White House presidential advisors, the Pulitzer Prize winners, all the great authors and minds that bring you their stories and their journeys of life. As we always say, stories are the fabric of life and the owner's manual, if you will, as well. And so that's what we have every day. 10 to 15 times a week, we're bringing you just the most brilliant people. So make sure you refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives, or else I'll haunt you in your sleep. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTokity, and Facebook.com/Chris Voss. Today we have an amazing young man on the show. We're going to be talking about some of his insights, his life experience, a couple of the books he's worked on and is working on, and get into it. He is the author of the book that came out May 1st, 2023, called Messed Up Like You. Me? No, I'm just kidding. Let me recut that. Messed Up Like You. How ADHD and anxiety didn't stop me from becoming a successful entrepreneur. Rick Culleton joins us on the show. We're going to be talking about his insights in his book and some of his journey through life and how he, what's the title of the book again? And how he became messed up like you. Not me, you folks out there. Some in the audience, I don't know. I'm messed up too. We all know that. Rick is a hustler, survivor, and serial entrepreneur. He started working and living in a Pizza Hut and now owns businesses as varied as used electronics, hospitality, and real estate, including hotels in Costa Rica and discount electronics and Inc. 5,000 fastest growing company. He says the best way to build a successful business is to solve a problem. Welcome to the show, Rick. How are you?
I'm good, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. Give us your .coms. Where do you want people to find out more about you on the interwebs?
Well, my personal website is rickculleton.com, and you can find links to just about anything there. If you're interested in the used electronics, it's discountelectronics.com, and the hotels in Costa Rica are Hotel Jaco. Jaco is spelled with a J, so it's hoteljaco.com.
There you go. Now I'm hungry for tacos. Way to go. Right at the beginning of the show, too. So, Rick, give us a 30,000 overview. What's in the book that you wrote, Messed Up Like You?
Well, the book started, it had a really interesting beginning because my daughter had given me a subscription to something called Storyworth a few years ago, which was it started out as a series of questions that came to me in email, and I was answering these questions thinking I was writing to myself. It was kind of interesting, maybe I'd print a book at the end of this for myself. And about, maybe 3 months in, my mother replied to a question that I had answered, and I came to the realization that there were other people reading what I was writing, which was rather shocking because I was writing very openly and to myself. And then as I got to go look back through what I had written to see what everyone had seen, I saw some settings in there that's, allowed public views. And I turned on a few of these questions I had answered along the way to the public. And a little bit later down the road, maybe another 3 months in, someone contacted me and said, look, this stuff needs to be told to the world. You could help some folks in a big way. So I finished that Storyworth subscription. My daughter then printed all the books before I even got to proofread them and gave them out as Christmas gifts the following year. And shortly thereafter, I started on what became Messed Up Like You, which is really about living with ADHD and anxiety and overcoming the anxiety and using the ADHD as a tool, because it's described as an affliction, especially with younger people, and that it can be difficult to educate them, and parents have a hard time controlling them, and so on and so forth, and you don't know what to do with them. And But as you become older and you master it, ADHD is an asset that I don't think I could live without. So it describes a lot of that in that, these business ideas, it's something that needed to be tamed along the way. But in my earlier years, I would run off on a tangent. I would just have an idea and I would act on it immediately, and it often failed. Much more often, it resulted in failure than success. But that built up the experience in a variety of fields, and I was trying everything. I was a used car dealer. I had car lots when I was 19 or 20 years old. I had all sorts of businesses: boat rental companies, pager companies, cell phones. For a while, I bought and sold gold and silver, and whatever idea I had, I ran with. Had a coffee shop, and as time went on, I learned how to control that. I think the underlying theme now is just because I can doesn't mean I should, and I have ideas all day, every day. And as you mentioned earlier, I said that if you want to make a successful business, you have to solve a problem. One of the things I have is I see a lot of problems every day, and I always see the solutions in my head very quickly, and I want to act on them. But over time, you learn to just pick and choose carefully.
Yeah, you got to pace yourself, eh? I suffer from the same ADHD, OCD disease. I'm not sure where I fit in there, but I've had it since I was a child. When I was I think it was about 10 or 13 years old, I started checking the door 20 times a night to make sure it was locked, paranoid that it, I go crawl back into bed and I was so worried. And then I would be like, did you check the door tonight, or was that last night you checked the door? That my brother had the same sort of thing. He would scrub his hands until they bled. But the interesting thing is a lot of people refer to ADHD and OCD, squirrel. So you can tell my brain's doing it already, as the CEO disease. And it turns out, I guess, according to data, that 30 to 50% of entrepreneurs have ADHD. And it seems to work well for us if we can manage it.
Yeah.
It's a big if. So there you go. Like you said the same thing I felt being a serial entrepreneur. I feel that it's both a weapon and power move, or whatever you want to call it. But it can also be a problem, to focus and get shit done. And, sometimes you're fucking around all day and you're just like, hey, and then you're like, hey, did we get those things done? It's real easy to turn on, I can turn on TikTok and 4 hours later, I'm like, oh, damn it. And it almost seems like, come to think of it, TikTok's kind of an OCD, ADHD thing. One of the bylines in your book is why it was from, I guess someone asked you when you were young, what do you want to be when you grow up? Tell us the answer to that question. I think you talk about it in your book and the story behind it.
I don't remember what the answer was to that question, but I imagine at that time I wanted to be anything but poor. That was my number one objective.
You win. That was the answer.
All right.
Is that your final answer? Yeah, that's
my final answer. And I had an interesting childhood, and I grew up in the country in upstate New York. And looking back, it was a fun childhood. It wasn't impoverished. It was just there was enough, and there was just enough.
Okay.
Most of the time. And I lived in a town. It was a tourist type town, and it was very divided, haves and have-nots. Either you belong to the country club or you did. And I don't want to belong to the country club today, but at that point in time, there was a bit of envy. It was like, hey, I'm on the wrong side of the street, and I want to be on the other side. And that became a driving force for me. And later on, I saw my father leave his job as a mechanic and a foreman at the Ford dealership. He was service manager and parts manager, and worked like a dog. He came home dirty and tired every day, and not very happy. And then he became an entrepreneur, and he came home dirty and tired and very happy.
Well, that's me around the office. You just described.
And he said to me one day at the dinner table, just in general conversation, he said, "You'll never be happy working for somebody else." And I don't know if he was speaking to people in general or me, but it's just something that stuck with me forever. And I've had jobs. I don't have any tangible skills. My formal education ended at age 17, so I'm not really employable. And I didn't have many other choices other than to become self-employed, you know. And I started out, I washed pots and pans at the Pizza Hut, as you mentioned, and lived in there for a while. And, you know, you got to do something. You can't just, you know, start. I suppose I probably could have found something to start out entrepreneurial right off the ground when I got to Texas. But, you know, that was kind of a gateway into meeting people and doing things and coming up with ideas and putting a little bit of money in my pocket. So I had some capital. But it wasn't long. You know, I probably had my first business, my first official business by the time I was 18 or 19, the first one that I registered, and just went to try one thing after the other. It was a lot of fun.
There you go. And so was there something about the other side of the tracks, the environment that was over there? Was there something that you found appealing or motivating? I'll give you an example. I grew up poor. Well, my parents lived in North Hollywood next to Bob Barker, and they weren't rich. They managed apartments, so they got rent free by collecting and doing all the apartment stuff. And we were literally 2 blocks from the Mann Theater. I think it's the Kodak Theater now, or whatever it is this week. And I was surrounded by this opulence. I would see BMWs and Mercedes and Rolls Royces at every corner. I grew up that way. I thought it was normal. It kind of fucked me up. But my parents were poor. They couldn't afford much. And, you know, I ended up living that life when they moved out of North Hollywood. But I always wanted those things, those BMWs, those Rolls Royces, and I'll never forget when I first got my first one. Was there something about the over the tracks that motivated you? Was there something that drew you to that, or just richness?
Most definitely. I mean, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that I was very motivated by things other people had, and what I saw at that time as lack in my life. I was lacking these things that I needed to make myself happy, and it really became the motivator behind everything. In retrospect, it wasn't a bad motivator, because along the way I've created a lot of jobs and companies, and I've had a lot of fun. But I think it put some misdirected values in my head that made everything that mattered have a dollar sign in front of it. And it wasn't until just the last couple of years that I've really come to realize that didn't really work. And it came to be, by the time I had accomplished everything I had ever set out to accomplish in my life, including having a very happy family and homes all over, and all the cars and all the things, and all the numbers at the bottom of the balance sheet that mattered. And then coming to the realization that I still had a lot of anxiety, mild depression, and I wasn't truly happy. And that's when it was a series of events with that as a backdrop that led me to realize I had been chasing the wrong thing all along. And I guess it's fortunate that I got to that finish line early enough in life where I could change direction and reassess my values and my goals. But it's something that I think happens a lot, and it's not necessarily all bad in that, as I said earlier, by chasing those dreams, I created a lot of jobs. I've got a lot of folks who love where they work, and I've got some companies that do good for the world. Discount Electronics keeps a lot of laptops and computers out of the landfill, and Hotel Hako employs a lot of people that are happy to work on the beach, and people come there and relax, and it makes their lives better. And so I'm happy with what I've done. But now is the time that I've come to realize after crossing the finish line that I was running the wrong race.
So what was the right race? How did you make that work?
Well, I mean, that's still a process, but
okay.
It's definitely there's been a lot of change in my life since that first book was written. And as you notice that inside that, one of there's a byline of that book is learning to deal with ADHD and anxiety. And what's changed in my life more than anything else is removing the anxiety rather than trying to deal with it, is taking it out of my life and learning how to not have anxiety.
Do you have some advice to people that are suffering from it, and or on how to tame the beast there, as it were?
I do, and a lot of what I put into practice is what's going to be in the next book. And this first book, the second book, or the first in this series, is all about the mornings and what we do to set a foundation for the day. And it starts out pretty simple. And one of one of these that might be hard for a lot of people to adapt is called techno-fasting. And that's just staying away from all of the gadgets in the morning. And it's an important part of removing the anxiety from your life, because if when you wake up in the morning and you're in this calm state with theta and alpha waves, and you're ready to progress into the day nice and peaceful, and you pick up a phone or turn on a computer or turn on the news, you're blasting yourself, and all of a sudden you're in a state of beta waves and you're shaking before your feet can hit the floor. And it doesn't set a good stage. This is not the way that you want to start your day out. But I've come up with my stack in the morning is elaborate. It's probably more than anybody else, any sane person wants to get involved with. I cold plunge every day.
Okay.
I have a very extensive routine, but I'm going to apply the 80-20 rule here, and that if you do 20% of what I do, you're going to get 80% of the results. And we've put that into a very concise, small book that's more of a manual that really gives you a guideline. And we start out with habits that you can use in your day that don't take a lot of time and don't take a lot of effort, that are going to significantly improve your overall happiness, but then give you the ability to customize that so-called stack in a way that works for you, because everybody's life is different. Everybody lives in a different place, has different circumstances. Some people have young kids, some people are retired, some people have all the time in the world, and some have none.
There you go. Now we're talking about the new book here that's going to be coming out, correct?
That's correct.
There you go. Do you have a title for it and an anticipated date?
It will be out this year. We haven't, there's not a title per se, but the website we're using for that book is mymorningstack.com.
Yeah.
And I doubt that will be the title, but it could be. I mean, that's really a pretty good description of the book, My Morning Stack. And this is what it is.
There you go. And so helping people with ADHD, I mean, I think we were talking about pre-show about how I kind of beat an ADHD that I'd had all my life with old age. It seems like my body had broken down. And then a couple years ago, a year and a half ago or so, I discovered, I'd been working out for 3 years and I was trying to build this V-taper body and this great muscle and this hard chest and the dude sort of thing, Schwarzenegger looking thing. I mean, not going that far, but, just building up my muscles. And for 3 years, I just worked hard at the gym every other day. And I kind of in this place where I just could not get beyond a certain thing. I couldn't get my chest to tighten up or muscle up. I could barely get, muscle in my arms. And so finally someone said, hey, go and see how your testosterone is doing. And I actually had half of the testosterone I needed, but the free testosterone that you need for extracurricular activities, I guess. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. But basically, for giving Chris extra muscle, when he's working out, I wasn't getting enough of that. I had like 0 or something. And so they put me on it and it changed my life. The only problem was it brought back the OCD and ADHD like a mother. And it's still a daily fun grind to take and do, but I put on a lot of muscle, so I've got that going for me. And I do feel great. I feel better than I ever have. I recommend to any man out there who's over, I don't know what, 40 or something, 30, 35, 40. I see a lot of young guys in the shop, but a lot of them, there's parabens and all these estrogenics that are in our food and our cleaners and stuff that's really mucking with our stuff. So I'm glad you're putting out a book that helps people try and manage this, because you really need it.
Yeah, and I don't see ADHD as an affliction. I hope that I have the level of it I have for the rest of my life. I'd hate to lose that flame. It's really it's an important part of what I do and who I am. And I enjoy seeing it in young people. And I taught Taekwondo to young children for a while. And more than once, I've had a parent apologize for a child because of their ADHD. And one woman even told me directly, she brought her child in, I am so sorry, but little Johnny didn't get his meds. Really? It's his father's fault. This kid seemed perfectly normal to me. And later on, that particular individual had really shaped up and became an excellent student. And sometimes it's difficult because we try to categorize these children and put them in a particular place. Even when I was in school, they moved me around. One year they put me in, I was in the 3rd grade, they put me in a combination 3rd, 4th grade class with the idea that they were going to jump the 4th grade and put me in the 5th grade the next year. And then they didn't. They put me in the 4th grade. And that year they were thinking they needed to hold me back and give me the 4th grade again. So, it's a challenge. And the educational system, the way we educate people, not just in the United States, but worldwide, is a little bit outdated and needs a significant revamping. To put kids in one 40-minute class after another, whether you've got ADHD or not, that's not the way we really learn, and we need to address that. But it is a problem for people with ADHD more than it is a problem for people that don't have ADHD. Mm-hmm. But I still think it's a great asset, and I think it makes for some of the happiest people I know are just as afflicted as I am.
Well, we do great adventures, right? We're always ADHD on some new adventure, and my biggest thing is like just the focusing sometimes, because you can be like, hey, I'm gonna work on this project, or I'm gonna work on these ideas here, and then then you get the notification on your phone from CNN or TikTok or just Facebook or whatever, and I think it's harder now to have ADHD with social media and the ping pongs of the mobile phones. You and I both, I think, grew up in the age without the phones, and so you didn't have like that rotary phone that weighed 500 pounds you could murder someone with by hitting them.
I got one of those.
You didn't get notifications from that, eh?
No, you didn't. But Chris, there's some really simple ways to deal with modern technology, social media, and ADHD, and some of them are fairly simple. And one that I didn't make this up, I learned from somebody else. I leave my phone in do not disturb all day, every day. It's never on buzz. If I have something really important that I'm waiting for, I might keep the thing close by so I can check it. But I'm famous for picking my phone up and finding 300 messages in there.
Are you married? I need to ask you that, Rick. Are you married?
Yes, I am. I'm married.
So what does your wife think of this this do not disturb? Does she have a bat phone direct line or something?
She and I talk all the time. Even when we're not together, we have a couple video calls a day. So, and we've been together since we were kids. I mean, we met when we were teenagers. And it's, but it is leaving, that phone is a really big distraction. And that's why I think techno-fasting is such an important part of the daily stack. A lot of the stuff that we talk about in this new book can be shuffled around and you can mix and match to make it work for your lifestyle. But I think that's a deal breaker. You have to learn to do without that device for the first 2 hours of the day. But I use a lot of other tricks. As you mentioned, you get distracted by all this stuff. The computer can be just as bad as the cell phone. I'm looking, my computer's over here. I have an hourglass. It's a 30-minute hourglass. And I make a list of what I'm going to do on the computer, and then I walk over there and I flip that hourglass over. And I don't just limit myself to the 30 minutes that are in that hourglass. I want as much sand left in that glass when I finish as possible. Wow. And it's a bit of a game, and it keeps me on task.
Oh, wow. I like that you gamified it. You've got a way that you use it to motivate yourself, but also keep it from getting out of control. I mean, like I say, I have that. I can be just on TikTok laying in bed going, one more video spin, spin, right? And then 4 hours later, the sun's coming up, and I'm like, damn it.
The dopamine death scroll.
Dopamine death scroll. There you go. I think we all kind of get sucked into it. I don't know how many people have ADHD, but so, I mean, let's talk about some of the ways you've utilized it. I mean, you started out, according to the your book, Messed Up Like You, where you were 15 when you were first arrested. You had issues with teachers underestimating you, barely finishing high school. You went to prison. Tell us about how did you walk through this gauntlet of, not really maybe understanding what the ADHD was doing and of course, people around you, to finding yourself?
Well, ADHD was the diagnosis I was given, and back then they called it ADD with hyperactive disorder or something of the sort. It had a longer name to it, but that was just one of the things. The rest of it was just.
Did they put you on? Sorry to interrupt you, but I think it's pertinent. Did they put you on medication, or have you ever taken medication for it?
I didn't have medication until much later in life, and I don't even remember. I tried Prozac or something that was recommended to me by a GP. I must have been nearly 40, and I think I took it for a week. That was not my fault. I did not like the new me. I don't even know if the drugs took time. I was never really that upset with the this conversation started out like this. I said to my GP, and we've known each other since we were both pretty much kids. And I said, I think I got ADHD. And he said, well, no, duh. You interrupt everything I say.
And so you never took the pills. I mean, some kids, they put them on Ritalin and Zoloft and Prozac. I think I've done 2 stints on Ritalin when I got really bad with where it became crippling after some events and overwhelming, and I couldn't shut down. I was having anxiety, panic attacks. And but other than that, just the short time that I've been on them for both, just to balance me out, most of it's just been a struggle. So I like that you're making this book. One of the things I came up with a couple years ago was studying Stoicism, and I realized that I was just being whipsawed by my morning. The first thing I look at is that stupid phone, and you know, I'm an entrepreneur, so you're kind of looking for fires where in the middle of the night, you know, we have an international clientele where they're, you know, somebody's like, hey, this isn't working, stupid, fix it. And, you know, so you're thinking, well, I got to deal with that now. And then you open up your email and just everyone's at you. Everyone wants a piece of you. Everyone wants your reply, your data, your information. Same thing with, you know, you get addicted to the Instagram likes, the Facebook likes. And I came with a thing where I check I do check my phone in the morning for emergencies. Like I just give a quick scan to make sure there's nothing on fire that I got to deal with. And then I go in and I make my coffee, talk to my dogs. And then I go out and I sit in the sun and I start my circadian rhythms. And this, I'm giving you my morning stack, I guess. And so I sit in the sun, get my circadian rhythms going, soak up my natural vitamin D. That's really important. I read usually something random out of meditations or other Stoic books, Epictetus, whatever. And then I kind of think about them. I make some notes, and then I just kind of ponder them. I play with my dogs, so I kind of connect with my family, connect with the environment, breathe in some fresh air. And then I come in, I sit down, I start my computer, and I just feel like more like I'm in the captain's chair, like Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I have more control. And then I feel like I'm more calmer. Like it's not that assault of, you know, 500 emails from last night going, the world's on fire, you know, and you're like, for Christ's sake, I should never went to sleep.
You know, Chris, you're on to a really good start for a morning, and those are some really important things. And getting outside to reset your circadian rhythm is important. And I also believe that you need to be out there at sunset at some point in time. You know, it doesn't need to be right at sunset, but you need that signal going to your body. And although my next book is about your mornings, without a good night's sleep, you're not going to have a good morning. And, you know, the fact that you know, reading is a great way to start the day. It's, you know, rather than getting into technology. And if you're going to read something, I love Marcus Aurelius. So if you're a Stoic fan, you know, we can talk. You know, all of the things that this guy, you know, you realize when you read that this was meant to be, this was his own personal right. They were never meant to be published.
Yeah, they weren't.
And what he went through and how he managed to focus and decide what's important, what's not important. You know, another person, I wouldn't call him Stoic, but Dr. Stephen Covey is a favorite of mine. He's really good at identifying what's important, what's urgent, what's not important, and most importantly, what's not urgent and not important. You know, ringing phones and all, you know, the urgency of a ringing phone and a not important task, trying to keep things out of the urgent and important quadrant. All of that kind of ties together. And in order to make all of that work to your best ability, you need to start your day out on a really good foundation, because I'm a data junkie. I use an Aura ring, and I can sometimes I wish I didn't know, but one of the first things when I do pick up my phone in the morning for the first time, the very first thing I go for is my sleep data. And I need to know how much deep sleep I got. And sometimes I regret looking at that number, because if it's below 44 minutes, I start to get this uneasy feeling like, oh, this isn't going to be a great day. And if I got an hour, I'm king. And, you know, I'm wondering, you know, who's leading who here? Because sometimes I feel like if I hadn't looked at that data, I might have had a great day anyway. But, you know, sleep is a big focus of mine. But you've got a really good start to a day. You know, just getting outside. You know, if you can just leave that phone alone for the first 2 hours and do that, just, you know, I like to put off the caffeine a little bit, and I use it almost as a reward, although some people suggest that's not a great idea. I'll do some things in the morning first. I'll do stretching and exercise and get outside, get some natural light, do some push-ups and some other things. And then when I journal, I drink espresso, and I'll drink my first espresso. It's kind of a reward.
There you go.
But you've got a good start.
What's your espresso machine? What brand is your espresso machine?
Bologna, I think.
Bologna. I might not be familiar with that one. I'm still new to espresso. I got into it in December, and now I'm broke. Now all my money's gone.
This machine's a little bit of an overkill. If I had it to do again, I'd buy one of those simple Nespresso machines, especially now that they have the biodegradable cartridges. I always felt guilty with those things when they were going to landfill. But and espresso is also for somebody with ADHD and a little bit of anxiety. I was drinking 10, 12 espressos a day.
Wait,
and that's not an exaggeration. I brought that down to 3, and that has helped my sleep. That's something else that people with ADHD often deal with is sleep, because your mind is so active that if you wake up to pee in the middle of the night, you got 47 ideas between the bathroom and your bed. And so shutting that down is a problem. It takes a lot of, you need to be a mind control expert to really be able to sleep and focus when you have ADHD, because there's so much more going on up there.
Yeah. Or you think of something. The one thing I found is the worst thing that I can ever do when I get up in the middle of the night or I'm trying to sleep is look at that damn blue light phone. Because immediately, as soon as that blue light hits your thing, your brain goes, "Oh, this is supposed to be get up, stupid." But the other thing I like you like tracking my sleep. I'm one of those people where if I don't get 8 hours of sleep within a 24-hour period, I mean, I can kind of go for a day. But there's murdering that might take place, and the judge says I can't do it anymore. I get one of my 6 ankle bracelets off next week for the last one. Anyway, but no, I will usually check my and we have to express her right away. I'm one of those bears where my girlfriend's calling me the bear, where basically when I wake up in the morning, you don't talk to me for 2 fucking hours unless you want to lose a limb. Like I'm that guy. I'm not a morning person. You'd have a funner thing playing, I don't know, rock, paper, scissors with death in the morning than messing with me. And so everyone knows, even my espresso machine has a little yellow sign that says, no coffee, no talkie. It's a warning sign. So it takes me a while to get going, and I have to have the caffeine. But I've got an 8 sleep bed. It's really cool. And the 8 sleep bed, like your Aura Ring, tracks my sleep and then patterns of REM sleep and deep sleep. And I found that data is really handy. And it also tells me, it was interesting what you said about how the wag the dog from the tail, maybe with the Aura Ring running your life, where you're like, do I have a good day or day because I didn't get enough sleep? But I've just kind of learned that if I don't get, if it doesn't say 8 hours on my 8 sleep bed, I just go, hey, I'm going to have to schedule a nap for an hour or 2 or something in the afternoon and balance it out. Otherwise, there's murdering.
I get a text message from my 8 sleep, and then I look at the app in the Aura Ring and I compare the two.
Yeah. Isn't that thing the great? Dude, there's one product that I have that I cannot live with. It's the 8 sleep. I can live without everything else.
I have one. Every place I live, we have an 8 sleep mattress cover, and it's constantly, tell it you're leaving, arriving, and it can be a little complicated. The app's a little clunky, but it's a big difference, and it has really turned me away from travel a little bit, because I love to go places, and I just made a trip a little while ago to Buenos Aires, and although I had a great time, I didn't have the best sleep.
Yeah. And
I bring along a little night light with me so that I'm not getting blinded, with using their bathroom lights and stuff, because I don't want to stop my melatonin production. And I got a pretty hardcore routine.
That's smart, dude.
But without the 8 sleep, it's tough.
Yeah.
The room's not the right temperature. I can't, I need it to be 68. I need the 8 sleep. I need complete blackness. We've evolved to live in a cave, and that's kind of the environment that I create in my bedroom.
Yeah. Our brains go, hey, there's light. You wake up and go hunt tigers and make sure they don't come in the house. And it's gone dark. It's asleep. But yeah, the 8 sleep is. In fact, I just went 3 weeks without mine here at the house. It went down. I popped it somehow. I don't know. It's been 2 or 3 years, and I run really hot. So I think I start melting some of the insides of it because I run on 10 like all the time. And so I went 3 weeks without it, and I couldn't figure out why I was so miserable. And everyone's like, "Man, why are you being so miserable? You're really ornery lately. What's going on with you?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm just not sleeping." And then I realized it was the 8 sleep. And so we just got the 8 sleep 4 now in, and we're going to review it for 8 sleep. And so I'm really excited. And so now I'm sleeping. This last few days, I've actually had good sleep. But yeah, these simple things, we were talking about sleep, getting out in the sun, vitamin D, getting some fresh air, not being towed through the social media, email, assault in the morning. I mean, I literally was starting to feel just like I was under assault every time I'd open my email, because it's just, it's all these emails. You're trying to prioritize them. You've got a couple fires you got to put out. So you're like, okay, we've got to prioritize the fires. And I just really started feeling assaulting. And I found that doing that, I guess, maybe if you don't mind if I call a stack, I know you probably have a different one that's more complicated, but by doing that, it just kind of prepared me. It was kind of like walking up to the podium as opposed to running a full blast from, across from a mile away, and you're out of breath and you're just trying to scramble and take it all in. I don't know.
And having a plan for the morning is a big help too. If you've got, whatever it is that's on your calendar, even our meeting today is on there. So I know what I've got coming on a piece of paper. Not on the computer screen, but on a piece of paper where I can look at it when I get up and kind of think through my day, both at night before I go to bed. That's usually when I make that list. And then look over it in the morning and kind of get just a game plan for today, and always try to leave myself enough space for urgent matters that pop up and for time for myself where I don't have to be scheduled all day long. And, of course, you and I don't get any commissions for these plugs for 8 sleep and everything else. But
we need to call them in.
I got another tool that you'll like. You've mentioned email 3 times, and I've recently started using an app called Superhuman. And that has been a bit of a game changer. So our mail is done by Google's mail servers, Gmail, and I've been using their default interface for as long as I can remember. And I was searching for a way to I love Manus. It's my favorite AI tool. And I could go down a big rabbit hole with that one, but I won't. But anyway, I was looking for a way, asking Manus how to sort my email and do a better job. And maybe you could answer some of my email for me. And I think either it or ChatGPT suggested looking at Superhuman. And I did, and I downloaded it. I want to say there's a little bit of a learning curve, and maybe the first day or two I was less productive and a little frustrated, and it took a little bit longer to get through the mail. But by day 3 I was at even, and by day 6 I was like, wow.
There you go.
Think that organization in your inbox could do that much for you, and it's more than just organization, but it is it's a game changer.
There you go. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. I got it pulled up here. I think we're just promoting everybody but you and us, or whatever.
Maybe
we're gonna have to make some calls after this show and say, hey, we used your guys' name. We need some money, man. 8 sleep. So there you go.
I'd rather just help some people out. If they can sleep better with 8 sleep and they can spend less time on their computer with Superhuman, maybe I'm earning a little karma credit.
There you go. And full disclosure for those out there in the YouTube industry or whatever, we've reviewed 8 sleep since 8 sleep 2, so we don't pay for our 8 sleep beds. So there you go. Did I make you jealous? But full disclosure, but it really is seriously the best freaking bed out there. We've tried a few different ones, and there's some good stuff out there, but so the sleep is so important. And I think, do you think that's one of the top things that ADHD people need to kind of get control of and get a handle on, get that good, healthy, deep sleep?
I think that everybody needs to get a handle on sleep. And I don't think it's just related to people with ADHD, because I've seen that it's made a big difference in my wife's life as well. She's anything but ADHD. I lived the first 38 years of my adult life as a drinker. And I don't think I ever really had a night's sleep until I stopped drinking. And that's just been about a year ago. That's when I went through life like, I never had a hangover. I sleep great, to realizing I never really slept. I just passed out, and I had a hangover every day. I just didn't know it because that's just the way I felt. Yeah. And it was after that I quit drinking that I really started to value sleep and understood the difference, and not realizing before just how great you really can feel. And then, like you said with the 8 sleep just a minute ago, when that thing broke, you're so used to feeling great and having a great night's sleep that when you don't, it's like, what just happened? I feel like butt.
Yeah. I got me a heating blanket, and then I was supposed to, send him a message saying, hey, we need a new thing sent out, eh? And I have ADHD, so I fucked around and didn't get in contact with him for a week and a half. So I went 3 weeks that I couldn't believe it. But yeah, it's I did the same thing with alcohol. We must be twins, Rick, or we must have been separated at birth. So I did about 20 years of hard vodka drinking. I wasn't an addict. I want to make that clear, but I did abuse it. And I was using it mostly for ADHD and entrepreneurism. So the sugar in the alcohol would, I could be tired. I could be at the end of the night, but you're just like, I got these projects that I need to finish, or this paperwork, or accounting, whatever you're working on as an entrepreneur 24/7. And so, I'd shoot back at night, a little bit of half a bottle of vodka, and then I'd get more work done. I'd be fired up, and I'd be like, hey, I get more work done. I'm relaxed. I'm moving. And I actually believed for 20 years, like an idiot. I wish somebody would have just, I don't know, punched me in the face a couple times. But I actually believe I slept better having vodka, nightcap vodka before bed. And you're right. I was lying to myself and bargaining with myself. And in reality, I fortunately around 50 or whatever what COVID was, around 2020, so around my 52nd birthday or something, my body gave out, said, we're not doing this with you anymore. If you want to drink for a couple hours every night, we're going to make you feel dehydrated, shitty for 3 days. And I really tuned into my body too. I started eating well. And so I started really noticing the effect it was having. But yeah, now I get the greatest sleep of my life. There's no hangovers. Edibles are a good thing. Edibles, I don't know if this is a topical or in any of your books or anything, but have you ever tried edibles as a way to kind of calm?
I've used a little bit of THC, but remarkably, when I quit drinking, I drank every day for 38 years. I took 2 nights off to take my son on a Boy Scout camp out. So I would use THC at the same time I was drinking, and never, it was fine. When I quit drinking and I tried to use THC, it was just too much.
Really?
Whoa. Wow. This is anxiety causing. And
you were getting anxiety from it. Wow.
So, and it's dosing. So I use a dropper, and if I am feeling a little wound up, and I don't know the milligrams, but I think my correct dose is about 2 milligrams of indica in a drink, maybe 3 milligrams. And that's enough to really kind of really bring me down and calm me down and feel good. And I do use CBD every night.
There you go.
So I can't say I'm completely drug free. I use 200 milligrams of CBD, and I take 24 milligrams of melatonin every single night, about an hour before I go to bed. I've got a pretty good ritual. I'm in bed every night at the same time, usually before 10 o'clock. I've just changed that a little bit. It was 9:15, and that wasn't getting me enough deep sleep. I found that I got better deep sleep if I waited a little bit longer to go to bed, so I'm going to bed a little bit later now. But pretty strict routine, and now I'm cutting back on the caffeine. I've gone from 12 espressos down to 3, and that seems to be good. Who knows? I might cut that out. I don't know. Every time I think about it.
No, we won't be friends if you cut out espresso, my friend. I live for that caffeine. But no, I've been, I used to drink 10 to 15 Mountain Dews back in the day when I was heavy. I mean, dude, you know what it's like. You drank for 38 years. There's a lot of, what's the old Dire Straits song, Heavy Fuel? You got a lot of heavy fuel to keep the fires burning there on the entrepreneurial journey. But
my daytime poison was Diet Coke.
yeah, see, all that caffeine and pop and sugar. And but yeah, I hope I never have to give up coffee. I really like coffee and espresso now. The espresso has helped me, just make better coffee and really appreciate coffee more. And of course, it tastes way better than that shit you put in and you get from Starbucks. But having probably a sleep schedule where you have you keep yourself on a schedule is probably really important as well too.
It definitely is. I mean, the circadian rhythm has become really important to me, and that if I follow my own rules, I sleep really good. And if I sleep really good, I have amazing days.
Oh wow!
And when I start to break those habits, and I don't do what I need to do to get the right sleep, I was abusing caffeine to keep myself going through the day, kind of borrowing on my future, and then causing myself to get worse sleep the next night because I'm so amped up from the caffeine I drank up until noon.
I've seen that movie.
It's a vicious circle. Alcohol was very self-serving in the same way. It was causing anxiety, and then I would mute the anxiety with the alcohol at 6 o'clock the following day.
Yeah. I think it sounds like this is going to be a good book that you're going to have come out on how to do these stacks, because it sounds like some of us serial entrepreneurs, we have kind of a problem. But it's the heavy fuel, man. 6 cigarettes and all night.
It's tough for entrepreneurs, because, especially in the beginning, and I ran out of excuses, because when you get to the point where it's not a complete struggle every single day anymore, you do start to run out of excuses. But I lie. There's two types of people in the world: those who've lied awake in the middle of the night wondering how they're going to make payroll, and those who haven't. And when you live that life, it's easy to become abusive of alcohol or anything else, because you feel the need to shut it off, because it won't stop. At the end of the day, it doesn't bring the end of the anxiety, and it doesn't bring the end of the worry and the concern. And that's a tough part. I know a lot of entrepreneurship gets this glamorous, shiny thing attached to it, but I don't know that I would take that path in my life again. I'm certainly glad. I would never change anything I've done this go around, but I don't know that I would make the same choices if I hadn't done it go around.
I would definitely start eating better earlier and taking care of myself sooner. Tell me if you did the same thing I did. I kind of had this Faustian bargain I play with myself. Like, I'm going to just do the heavy fuel now, the cigarettes, cocaine all night, and the girls, and then I'm just going to make the money and finally make it work. And then when it's successful, I can kind of, I don't know, go to the gym. And
Chris, I think we all do. It's not just that, but we do that with a lot of things. I'll be happy when, or I'll be happy if. But my real turning point, where I started to get healthy and got the idea that two things happened pretty close together. When I turned 30, I had my first kid, and there were no cell phones back then. We sent the photos off to get them developed, and they came back, and I was like, "Who's that fat kid holding my kid?" And I had to look at the picture twice. I'm like, "Shit, that's me," And shortly, at that point, I was doing nothing for myself. I mean, I was just killing my body slowly, quickly, rather. And then shortly thereafter, a very good friend of mine, who's really kind of my adopted father, Ron Fleming, we had a party for him. And I want to say it was his 50th birthday party. He's probably 78 or so. I don't. But anyway, he told me on his birthday, he said, "Rick, if I had any idea I was going to live this long, I'd have taken better care of myself."
Yeah.
And that stuck with me.
Isn't it funny? It's funny. I'll watch the guys from the Who, Roger Dalton and I can't remember the guitarist's name off the top of my head. I didn't get enough sleep last night, evidently. I actually went to the gym, worked out really hard, and I've been up all night. I've just been fired up with dopamine or some shit. So TikTok, yeah, that too. And what was that line that they famously sang? "I hope I die before I get old." I think we all kind of have that mentality where getting old is like down the thing, and then you wake up one day and you're like, "Holy shit, I'm old." You got little girls not little girls, but they seem little to me now. At the grocery store going, "Sir," and you're like, "I'm not what, sir?" So there you go. As we round out, what else do we want to promote? Tell people things they want to find out more about you. Do you do any coaching or consulting? Can people reach out to you for help, advice on all the different things you're working on?
I don't do any consulting or coaching, and anybody's welcome to reach out to me if they need some advice in some regard. And, more than anything else, I think if I wanted to leave somebody with one thought, it's that, your past doesn't define you. And you've got a lot of choices. And I learned this flying an airplane. You don't die until you run out of choices. So you are in complete control of your destiny, no matter where you are in life right now. Just take a look, decide what it is that you want to do, what you want to be, and then make the right choices and turn yourself in that direction. It's hard work, but it's worth it.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Yeah, it's definitely worth it, but take better care of yourself. There's so many entrepreneurs that kill themselves, and I think they might die an earlier death. I don't know. But it takes a toll. The stress of being an entrepreneur, the stress of life, even if you're not an entrepreneur, takes a toll. It's not an easy ride anymore if you haven't looked around lately. And there's always some new thing coming. We had the COVID crisis a while ago. Right now we got tariffs and no one knows what's going on with the economy. And, there's always challenges. There's always stress. And, you've got to be able to manage it. But taking care, I think, of what you're talking about in your upcoming book, that stack of setting a foundation in the morning, getting launched on your day right, taking care of the most important things about yourself, starting out with calmness, with peace. It just changes your whole day, in my experience, from the little stack I use.
It does.
There you go. There you go. So, Rick, as we go out, give us your .coms. Tell people any places they want to reach out to you, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, if you want to see more about the new book, you can find that at mymorningstack.com. It's probably the best place to go.
There you go. And then I couldn't remember, there's not a title yet, right?
There's not.
Okay,
that'll probably be the very last thing to happen. If it's anything like the last book, it'll be when we need to make the cover, we need a title.
You know why I couldn't remember? Because I have ADHD. Squirrel. That's my excuse for everything these days. Well, thank you very much, Rick, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris. It's been great talking to you.
It's been wonderful to talk to you as well. Lots of fun. Brother from another mother, evidently. Messed up like you. How ADHD and anxiety didn't stop me from becoming a successful entrepreneur. If you have ADHD, it will definitely help you out. And order it now, because otherwise you're going to go squirrel. So get on Amazon. Anyway, thanks so much for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTok, and all those other crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.